like, I can't bother to go back, and I'll just stay there for like 6 days.
Yeah.
And it's
I
not
love
far.
that family is clearly so important to you. Like family's everything to me. Like my friends always laugh at me. I voluntarily spend time with my parents probably like every second weekend. I love it. Like I'm like go home, eat, drink, like hang out, play games. Like I just love it. Absolutely love it.
Okay, so you're saying 1, take 1, A and C, common mark.
1, take 1, A and C, common mark. There you go. You get to smash your board too.
Okay.
So
You're
exciting.
saying B and C, 1, take 1, B and C, common mark.
1, take 1, B and C, common mark.
Smashing.
Amazing. Ready to rock and roll? Might want to pull your mic slightly closer to your face. He's going to go. I fight with him about this all the time. Because I'm like, it's ugly. I don't like it. And he's like, we can't hear you.
Like 2 inches minimum, so a little bit closer would be fantastic. Yeah.
Is there a reason why you wouldn't just use like the road marks and put them onto a person?
So the quality of these is
A lot better.
A lot.
Yeah.
And also people faff around with lapel mics
Yeah,
and
yeah.
scratch and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And people are used to the iconography of
Yeah.
I think also for us, it's like this is obviously social content, it's video content as well, but like the hub of this is audio. So like it has to be. Whereas like social content, I think you can get away with a lapel mic, you can get away with a Rode clip on.
Yeah.
Whereas like this, if you had a Rode clip on and you were just listening to it, your eyes would probably bleed. Your ears would probably bleed. Simmy, welcome to the Branded Podcast. I'm so excited to have you. I've been watching your journey like selfishly, particularly through LinkedIn and on Instagram for quite some time. So I'm very, very excited to have you. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So before we dig into anything, I want to do a little quick fire, like 10 questions, if that's okay. We want first answers that come to your head. Like however random, just like hit me with it. So if you could only eat one meal from Simmer for the rest of your life, what would it be?
OG jerk chicken.
Okay, why?
It just like ticks all the boxes. Like the chicken is good. Like every time we used to have like a cheat meal on a Saturday night, and then we just like stopped because we were like, it's not better than this. So that's my go-to Saturday night meal.
I love that. So what is it? It's like chicken, rice,
jerk
the whole
chicken,
thing.
rice and peas. There's like cabbage in it, or like greens, and then plantain.
Yum.
Yeah.
I love jerk chicken.
Yeah.
Like obsessed. There used to be a place in Central London. I think it's closed now. In Covent Garden. They did like near Covent Garden. They did really, 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 really good chicken. And I remember it used to take like literally an hour and a half to come. Yeah. Like you'd be sitting there being like, I ordered an hour and a half ago, and they're like, yeah, and like whatever. So worth it. If your younger self saw where you are now, what would be the first thing that he said?
The first thing that came to my mind is just wow. I think it wouldn't have been something that I expected, but also it would be, I know this quick fire, but like I would expect to be successful, but not this early and in this way. Yeah. Like I wouldn't expect to have started a food business and, be 27 and be here.
When you say like you expected to be successful, like what did in your mind's eye, like what did that look like, do you think?
Well, I know what it would look like, because when I was younger, I thought, I would go and, study at the best university, study maths, become like an academic, and then, work in finance and make lots and lots of money. And then maybe in my 30s, then start a business. I think, I guess things have changed so much. But when I was growing up, it was like, you knew about business, but you didn't really know, it wasn't entrepreneurship, it was business. And I felt like it had to be, something shiny, something like, I don't want to say more prestigious, not a food business, which doesn't sound prestigious.
Why do you think it doesn't sound prestigious?
Oh no, as a kid I didn't.
Okay, fine.
Now I'm just like, well, at the end of the day, the best business is the one that makes you money and, you enjoy doing and provides value to people. Whereas growing up, you think, it needs to be some software, it needs to be some tech, it needs to be something that's, fancier, less, I don't know, because food is so accessible, it seems less prestigious. But as I said, the best business is the one that you enjoy doing, that makes you money, that provides value to people, not that is the most clout.
Yeah, it's it's really funny. Like I think there is this massive perception online, and probably it's driven by social media really, because software is obviously the most scalable because you build once, you sell a million times. And obviously then typically the companies get the big raises and like the big exits and the big IPOs and stuff. And I think it's kind of tricked people into thinking that they're the best businesses to start. But actually every business owner that I've met that is, when we talk in financial terms, like the most successful, I'm talking billionaires, they're all the ones that have the unsexiest businesses. They're like hardware businesses, brake pad businesses, like stuff that you're just like, what? Like, and they honestly make the craziest money and have the biggest exits. And I think it's because they go for what makes a good business, not for what is sexy and cool.
Yeah. I think they're also less competitive, and there's like, they're recession proof. They're just like, they add value. So you're always going to need them, kind of thing.
There's a very, very smart person that I know who exited his business like 10, 15 years ago. And he's since then helped other businesses exit up to 600 million pounds, right? So he knows what he's doing. And he said to me, the only thing that makes a successful business outside of like, you know, all the nuances of like operations and cash flow and hiring the right people and whatever, is whether or not you take the hassle away from someone for something. And so Simmer obviously like takes hassle away, and that's probably a huge reason as to why you guys have been so successful so fast, but we'll get into that in a second. Are you an early bird or a night owl?
Early bird. Yeah.
What time do you get up?
Between 6 and 7. I don't know if that's early.
I mean, early for some. Depends who you're asking. If you ask my son, it would be like, that's very, very late. If you ask my daughter, she'd be like, oh my God.
Yeah. I think I went for a phase when I would be waking up between 5 and 6. And I just feel like the issue with, as I'm sure we'll come on to with the business, is that like, if I start working at a certain point, it's just so hard to stop.
Yeah.
And I'll often stop for like dinner, and then I'll always go back on before bed just to like plan the next day. And sometimes there can be so much that's come in that I might end up working till midnight or 1. And I hate that, because then I pretty much always wake up, like I very, very, very rarely wake up past 8. And it's pretty consistent. But even if I go to bed at 2 a.m, I'm going to wake up at 7:30, 8. And I think sleep's really important. So my ideal would be, you know, going to bed at, you know, 8:59, just make sure it's before 9, and waking up at, you know, 5:30. Yeah. 5:39, 5:36, sorry.
So funny. I have a friend of mine, Gabe Wynn, who runs a corporate affairs firm. Really, really amazing guy. He told me that he had a bit of research done, and the thing that makes the difference between your quality of sleep and feeling like fucking amazing is not really the hours. Obviously, hours are important, but they're not the most important thing. It's waking up at the same time every single day. And I took that really to heart. And since then, I really try and go to bed before 10, always. Not always, obviously, but really try to always. And at the minute, I'm getting up at 5:45. And what I'm finding is I'm the most productive between 5:45 and 7. Yeah. Like this morning, I cleaned my entire house, did all my work, like all the shit that, like, as you and I both know, if your space isn't clean and like, you know, feeling optimized and peaceful, like it's really hard to execute a work. And I'm in between cleaners, first world problems, world's tiniest violin. But I needed to get that shit done. And I think once you get all of that shit done, whether it be work or like home stuff, before you've even started your day, you feel so fucking productive. And like you, I can't stop either. So like I need to have like set boundaries to keep going.
I think on that as well, the thing that I always say to people, like let's say I said to my friends or my brother or whatever, I would just say between 9 and 12, like PM, people like don't do anything of value. They watch TV, they like scroll, they ruminate, they have like tired thoughts. And if you could just trade 9 to 12 for like, you know, 5 to 8, like you're obviously going to be way better off like being awake during those hours than those hours. But some people don't do that. But yeah, it's a no-brainer.
And also your cortisol levels are at its highest in the night. So if you're stressed about something, you're going to feel even more stressed if you do anything in the evening. Whereas if you do it in the morning, your cortisol levels are at the lowest. Yeah. So it's like, it's just a better way to operate, I think, in my opinion. What's a food trend that you secretly love but haven't told anyone? Like, you know, you see on Instagram or like TikTok, people like wrapping like shit around gherkins and eating them and like all that stuff.
I don't really like get involved with that kind of stuff. I like what I like, and I'm always open to try new things, but not.
What's the weirdest thing you've tried recently? Like you've been on lots of travels, which we'd like to dig into.
Probably like the weirdest thing that comes to mind is I tried whale in Japan. It was awful, but I thought like apparently it's like, you know, really bad. You should, like, I guess you're condoning like whale hunting, etc. But like, I guess what's the difference between whales and chicken? It's like they're still animals, if you know what I mean. But it was awful. But I just did it. You know, you're on a holiday, you want to try it once. It was like rubber. It was so bad.
Oh no.
In terms of something else that I think actually could be, you know, quite popular in the UK and is in Argentina, they have mate, which is like their like healthy. Well, I don't know if it's actually healthier. It's their like caffeine. So lots of footballers have like these really cool, I don't know what they're called, like cups, but they're like matte. I don't know what they're actually called. And you always see like Messi or Nunez or like the Argentinian, Uruguayan players have them. So I've always wanted to try it. And we did like a mate tasting class. It doesn't taste very good. It tastes quite bitter. But I did feel quite alert afterwards, but I don't drink coffee at all. So that's probably why I'm like very sensitive to the caffeine. Like if I have some, I'll be like really energetic.
Yeah. I love trying new stuff. Like that's my favorite part of going on holiday is like trying the local like thing.
Yeah. Another thing actually that I really liked, again, I don't know how healthy it is acai. So we had that obviously a lot in, you know, Argentina and Brazil. And I was like, oh, let's have it because it's a bit healthier than ice cream. So every night we were just like
smashing the acai bowls.
Smashing it. And like, it was one of those places where you can get it from anywhere. And some places are just not so good. But there's a place where you serve yourself. So you can have like pistachio, you can have like original, and then like you put your own toppings on. So the first time
it's like froyo.
Yeah, exactly. And like when I was growing up, I was like a big kid and like definitely my eyes are bigger than my belly. So like when I went to this place, I was like, yeah, I'll have all this. And then you get to the end, you weigh it and I was like 1 kg and I was like, that's unreal. Yeah, that's probably too much. And then we went there like literally 7 nights in a row. And that's what I'm like I don't really care about trends. If I like something, I'll just keep on having like the jerk chicken. We went there and then like I was like, I'm gonna have less this time. And like the lowest I ever got it is like 750 grams. But yeah, I like what I like.
I love a froyo, particularly when you can like put the acai bowls that I used to get. So we used to have an office in New Bond Street, like just down the road. And there was a acai bowl place like behind the office. And so a lot of the guys used to go and get that for lunch instead of like in summer, like we go and get that for lunch. And you could get like peanut butter, you could get like straw, and it was just, and I'm sure it's like 1,000 calories.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's the best. Do you want to build your personal brand but don't know where to start? Or you want to start posting content and have no idea what to say to attract your ideal audience? Sign up to Get Clout. It's a generative AI platform that delivers you a personal branding social content strategy and tells you exactly what to post, where to post it to get the outcomes that you want to get from your social media. Go to www.clout.com/membership to join 565 people today who are also building their personal brand. Is there a secret ingredient that you swear by in your food when you're cooking?
No. I don't think there's any like
Seasoning.
secret. Yeah. It's just like like, again, I don't think like there are any secrets really with anything. Like everyone knows the secrets. Like what's the secret to business? It's like just consistency or hard work and just turning up. And you know there are like clever things that you can always be doing. But I just think like with food, it's just like you want it to like the ingredients to be good quality. You want like the nutritional content to be good, and you want it to taste good. It is actually just very simple.
What was the first thing that you made for Simmer? This isn't on my list, by the way. I'm just curious.
Jerk chicken.
The jerk chicken.
Yeah. Obviously, it's changed so much since then. It's like come on leaps and bounds. But yeah, that was like the first thing, and it's just like it's so popular. The other, I guess, like another like very popular meal was the peri peri, and I love that as well. It's like a second close for me.
I'm gonna have to try the jerk chicken. You've sold me on it. If you were stranded on an island, what would be the one non-food item that you would take?
I think you'd have to take some kind of like knife or like some kind of, you know, something that's actually functional and useful. I don't know.
So practical.
Yeah. I think like, obviously you can't say, oh, well, I'll take a boat because
well, I didn't put any context. So you could take a boat.
I think like some kind of knife, because obviously you can use that to hunt, to like build some kind of structure.
That's just the most mad answer ever. I'm like, I would take music.
What would you take?
Probably music.
Yeah.
And die.
Yeah.
Or my most recent purchase, which is a bejazzled water bottle.
Oh, okay.
It's like crystals all over it. I'm like, it makes me happy.
Fair enough.
What's the most embarrassing thing that you've ever posted online?
I don't know if I posted anything embarrassing. I think like, you know, there's stuff that's, you know, what's the word? Not embarrassing, but, you know, vulnerable, but like not very vulnerable, but like, it's just being honest. I don't know. I think like when I was younger and, you know, you're like 18 to like 21 and you're like, you posting stuff on Snapchat on your story, there's probably stuff that's like cringy. I don't know, just like joke around with my mates or on a night out or something like that, but like nothing very embarrassing, to be honest.
I look back at some of my photo dumps from Facebook. That's definitely showing my age. I'm a lot older than you. And I remember like I can see them now. It was like you go out on a Saturday night with your friends with a little digital camera and you take like all these pictures and everyone's like, and it's just like madness, and everyone's got like different colored foundation on their face to their neck and like weird white lips and like overly penciled eyebrows. It's just cringe. It's cringe, but it's part of my story, so it's fine. If you were a mad scientist, what would you invent and why?
For my own, like, not that this is practical, but I feel like the first thing that comes to mind is a time machine. A time machine, teleportation machine. I think that'd be very practical.
Where would you go? What year?
Time. I don't know. I really like the 20th century. I think there's lots of things that happen that are interesting. So, wars, like, I think that's interesting, right?
Where would you go back? War.
Yeah. Not to be like in danger, but to see things. So many inventions, when someone invented like the TV or the phone or airplane and like all of these kind of things. I think,
it's mad. That's not that long ago.
Yeah, it's
My mum was the first house on her street to have a colour TV. Like, and she remembers that when she was like 8.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
And now we're all out here with like TVs in our pockets.
Yeah. I find like 20th century history like a bit boring and a bit like too distant. And I guess also it's biased how it's kind of written to an extent is like a lot more, like just like, what I mean, in terms of like where you like, I guess the whole conversation
Only rich
about
people wrote history.
Yeah. And it's just like, I don't really find that very interesting at all. But I think 20th century, really interesting. I guess, again, it is rich people. It's men who are writing history often. But I feel like the 20th century, there are more stories. And because of social media, it's a bit more, anyone can kind of share their story. But yeah, to an extent, 20th century is a bit more, it's far enough away for it to be interesting, feel like history, but not so far away for it to be like biased and yeah.
I get it. I recently read David Mitchell's, I can't remember what the book's actually called, but David Mitchell as in of Peep Show, like the comedian. He wrote a book on the kings and queens of England and it's listening to it on audio is one of the funniest things I've ever listened to in my life, but so educational. Like I've learned all about like the kings and queens of England between like, I think it was all the way back to like the 1200s to today, but in the narration of David Mitchell's voice. So if you're interested in audiobooks and you want to learn something, like I highly recommend it. It's amazing. Okay, last question. If you could instantly become an expert in something outside of work, what would it be?
I don't know. I feel like something that you would really enjoy, and like I don't like drawing, for example, but like let's say like it would be something that's just like it's not like, oh, I'm not an expert in like some kind of science or whatever. It's just like something that's just like a fun hobby, but you can be like excellent at it. I think maybe that's what I would say now. If I was being really practical, I'd say, expert communicator or expert, in a certain skill that you can monetize. But I don't think I need to do that now. So, yeah.
You know what's funny? I spent my entire life, like I'm a hazard a guess and say very ambitious. And I've always been very ambitious too. And I spent my entire life kind of dreaming and hoping, but also working my absolute arse off to build an amazing business. And what I've realized in the last 18 months is like, I don't want to build an amazing business. I want to build a business that gives me an amazing life. And to your point about, the guy that exited MySpace, if that's the story, like that's the dream, like surely, like, we work, like I think some people spend so much of their life working and then get to the end of it and be like, shit, like I didn't get to do this. I didn't get to do that. I wish I could have rode horses more. I wish I could have traveled more. I wish I could have whatever. Or most importantly, the biggest regret that most people have is like, I wish I'd spent more time with my friends and family. Like no one's going to remember that you got an extra £1 million in 2024, but they will remember that you didn't show up to their, whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think when you said about you travel more, you can do those other things. The two other things that would come to my mind I could be expert in is languages. So I can just travel and then just talk to people. That'd be pretty cool. But I don't know if that would also just get boring at some point.
Duolingo.
Yeah.
I know someone who speaks 10 languages fluently.
Yeah.
And I would argue they're not that smart, but like clearly they are very smart.
Yeah.
And I know who they are, so I'm sorry, I love you.
I think also with that kind of stuff, it's just like, if you can do all that, but you have a job that you don't like and you're like, do you know what I mean? I think like when you're doing well in business, then you can like, it's a luxury to be able to say, I can do these things. But if you don't have a life that you enjoy and you can do all these skills, it's just kind of like, well.
What's the point?
To an extent, yes.
Yeah.
That
my goal now is like, have an amazing life.
Yeah.
And I want my business to fund that.
Yeah.
As opposed to spend my life building an amazing business. And that mind shift for me has been massive. And I think this year has been the happiest year I've ever had in my entire life because of that shift. And I want more people to see that. But I think maybe you have to go through some shit together.
You have to have a good business in order. It's like
well, this year's been terrible for business, by the way. But, like terrible.
But you probably are still in like a good enough position to like afford to say that, if you know what I mean. Because I feel like when you go through life and you're like, so for me, for example, like desperate to make sure that like my dad's not really stressed and I can retire and my parents, like I don't have to worry about my parents and I don't have to worry like financially for myself, like, can I not do these things? Can I not do those things? Can I have to like, you know, like really, really think about if I can afford to buy this, just because I've always grown up like that.
Yeah.
And now that I don't have to worry about that stuff, now I can choose, I want to be good at art and not, I want to be good at, you know, negotiation or, do you know what I mean, communication or creating content or something that's just really monetizable, basically.
100%. Like, and it's the same kind of thing about people who are like, have balance. They're the people that talk the most about that kind of stuff are typically the ones who can afford to have it because they've already been successful. The only caveat I would say to that is this year's been the worst year financially that I've had in like 4 years, both in the business and in my personal life. And that's been for a number of reasons, mainly like divorce and like shit like that, which by the way is an absolute pit of money. And the only people that win in a divorce are the lawyers for sure. But I think because it's been so difficult, it's made me really reprioritize like what I actually care about, which has then made everything like kick off again. Last year was the best year I've ever had financially, on paper successful, right? But was the most miserable I've ever been. So I think I totally agree with you. Like I'm very lucky that I have the privilege of having a successful business that affords me being able to do stuff like this and like whatever. But also my priorities have changed massively, I think, because it has been so shit. Like when stuff's not great, you're then forced to be like, well, am I going to continue to feel like this is terrible? Or am I going to decide actually, let's make a cake out of this and do something amazing with our life, which is what I've done this year. And it's been 10-10. So thank you for humoring me with those questions. Loved your answers. Let's get cracking with like the main core of why I want you here, or why I was so desperate to speak to you. So you founded Simma with your brother, uni kitchen table. Why?
I, as I said, always wanted to start my own business.
Where's that come from?
I feel like when you grow up and you don't have lots of money, you want to have money because obviously like every problem that you have, you're like, oh, well, I can't do this because I don't have enough money, or, oh, we can't go there, or we can't do this or whatever. It's just like, it's frustrating and you feel a little bit powerless if you don't have any money. Obviously as a child, you always feel powerless because you don't have authority. But then also when you see parents can't do stuff because you don't have money, it's just a bit long really. So I felt like I always wanted to do well. I feel like most successful people just have a lot of confidence really, or like self-belief. And I guess the difference between confidence and self-belief, and you can have confidence in certain areas and not in other areas, right? And I feel like I always just had a lot of self-belief and confidence in my own ability, whether that be in school or in being able to solve problems. So I felt like I have this potential, I have this ability, what do I want to use this for? And as a kid, you're like, okay, I want to use this ability and be a really great footballer and become a professional footballer. Yes, I would enjoy what I do, also make a lot of money. And then I was kind of like, well, I'm probably not going to be a professional footballer. Great, I actually love business even more than that. I want to start a business because it's freedom. I hate, I feel like I mean, honest and self-aware. I don't like being told what to do. I don't like, I could never have a boss. Like,
unemployable.
Yeah, 100%. So I feel like it's great that I realized early that the best job in the world is to be an entrepreneur, to have your own business, because it's freedom, it's autonomy, and it's money.
You choose your own destiny, right?
Yeah.
Like if you thrive or you don't, that's on you rather than on anyone else. And I think that is both scary, but also like incredibly empowering if you're someone who's empowered by that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I think also, I think quite like, I was always really good at maths. So I think a lot in terms of numbers, but like, even if like life was a graph of like, time on the x-axis and like outcome or happiness or money, happiness, say, on the y-axis, and like most people, like there's a variance. So like if you just keep the safe path, the worst thing that's going to happen, and you just work hard, is you're going to have a job that's not very well paid and your happiness is going to be here. If you have a job that's really well paid, your happiness is going to be here. But with entrepreneurship, it'll increase the variance. So you can have a really shit outcome or a really great outcome. But if you're a good entrepreneur, it's going to be better off. Like, so the average is going to, like, my expected value, my expected outcome is higher by being an entrepreneur.
I love that. But the thing is, not everyone can do that, right? I don't think everyone can be an entrepreneur.
Only because people have closed mindsets. Like, not everyone can be an entrepreneur because how would the world work? Yes, but I feel like if anyone wants to become an entrepreneur, they can. Like, if someone actually says, oh, I would love to be that, then the only thing that's stopping them is their mindset.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I also think that a lot of people don't realize how hard it is because there is so much online of like, you know, want your dream job, quit and start your own business. Like that's the narrative that people get told. And I think entrepreneurship, business ownership, you know, leadership, it's all overly glamorized and overly promoted because that's what we show the highlight reel, right? We're like, oh look, I've got a book coming out 5th of December, guys, pre-order. But I've got the personal branding playbook. I've got a book coming out. I'm doing this, and I've just hired this person. And it all looks really amazing. But what you don't see is like staying up until 2 a.m. trying to work on that pitch, losing clients, cash flow problems, suppliers not coming through, logistic issues, like you know, all of these things, which takes a certain level of madness and resilience to deal with. Like you have to be a specific kind of person to look at a 50 grand hole in your cash flow and go, how the fuck are we going to pay everyone next week and figure it the fuck out? Like, and that's why I mean, it's not that people that can do that are better than people that can't. It's just that it's oftentimes actually the most intelligent people are not the ones that start businesses because if we were all like really, really intelligent, we probably wouldn't because it's so difficult. But I think you have to have a certain level of madness to or appetite for risk. Yeah.
And I think risk appetite and resilience is really important because some of the smartest people, like who, I guess if we define like smart or intelligence by, you know, typically academia, so you can like get certain grades, those people are going to end up with like good jobs, but then like, do they have good lives? Like maybe not. Like they, obviously happiness is like, you know, your reality versus like your expectation. Whereas those people have huge like expectations and their reality is good, but like some of them will be less happy than the people who have, you know, no expectations and they're not like, all right. So do you know what I mean? Like they could be objectively worse off, but like subjectively happier.
I love that. That's so true. When your expectations are here and you don't meet them, you feel miserable, right? Like I've got friends who have got like very simple jobs, very simple lives, and they're like the happiest people that I know. Yeah. It's I've never heard it explained like that. I love that. Why, Simmer?
So I knew I wanted to start. You said, why did I start that business when I started it? I knew I wanted to start a business at some point, and I thought, okay, my dream business, like that I thought would be, you know, in my 30s, something high tech, something fancy. How do I get there? Obviously, I can't just start there because I'm a kid. I'm not credible, or people don't think I'm credible. I know I'm credible, but I've got no proof. So, you know, I have to start where I am. What is a business that I can start? Well, it's food business. It's like there's a clear, like, obviously selling sweets on the playground, right? Kids want sweets. I can buy them and sell them and make a profit. I'm going to do that. I did that for like 4 or 5 years. Okay, what's the next thing up that, you know, is a little bit better in terms of I can charge more. It's a bit more differentiated, a food business. And obviously we had grown up in like, especially as like teenagers with Jay, like playing at like high levels and having to eat healthy. Dad, to be fair to him, even though he has some like bad habits like smoking, he was always like, we should eat healthy. And so we always like had healthy food that also tasted good. And I wanted to, so I dropped out of university. I was doing like maths at Warwick, and it's just like,
wasn't it?
No, it was horrendous. And like, I don't want to go for a massive tangent, but like basically it wasn't like, I didn't enjoy it. And
it wasn't what you expected.
Yeah, but I think I was just naive because I was just thought, well, I'm going to have a problem. Let's pick the most desirable problem or the high value problem because maths is the hardest subject. Like, I guess a lot of people would say that. Let me try and do the hardest subject and be the best at it so I get the highest payoff. Then I realized like I was the best at like my state school, but actually when I went there, the reason I loved it because I was good at it. When I went there and I was like, I'm just like everyone else here. I don't love this anymore. Why am I actually here? To get a good job so that I can eventually start a business? Well, I can do that doing economics. And I can do that at a less competitive university that's more fun. Well, I'll go do economics in Bristol. And obviously that's where I started the business. So when I dropped out of Warwick, I did a admin job. And honestly, I'm trying to think if I should be saying stuff like this, but like, God, I could just say it. Like, I don't care too much, but
we value authenticity on the brand.
Yeah, like, be careful. Someone's going to bring this up in a few years and be like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. I think it's just me being honest. I am obviously not everyone can be an entrepreneur because then how would the world function, right? If everyone wants to do that, who's going to do like the jobs that need to be done? Who's going to be a nurse? Who's going to be a doctor? Who's going to be a policeman, right? These are really important jobs and like we need people to do these jobs. Who's going to be a teacher, right? But like I do think like if you enjoy that 100% you should do that. That's a right decision, and you are helping other people. But the thing I can't stand is people who do a job that isn't like that desirable because it's not like well paid or stimulating or varied, and complain about it. And I feel like if you're that person, like in my mind, like you're an NPC. You're just like, you're just floating through life. You're like, what are you doing basically? But like in the like harshest way possible, fine. Like it makes it easy for me to stand out. It makes it easier for me to thrive because I'm competing with people who aren't driven, aren't motivated. So it was a great lesson for me. Like, I think everyone who's successful has a massive like bump in the road. They have a massive setback because if you don't, you aren't hungry enough.
You need a bit of chip on your shoulder, I think, to
100%.
be able to get that rocket fuel, especially at the beginning.
100%. And like, I think a lot of people have that in their childhood, which is great. So like maybe I had that because seeing my dad really struggle, like in hindsight, now that that's all like kind of solved, great. Like it made me who I am. And then I think having that experience with Warwick, it really humbled me. And like, I was like, well, obviously I wouldn't say this to anyone. I would think this to myself. I would be like, well, I wasn't able to solve that problem. And other people are going to think I wasn't able to solve that problem. Fine. Let me now show them that I was. Again, it's no one in particular. I'm just thinking this to myself.
Yeah, I get it. It's you versus everyone. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So when I dropped out of Warwick, I got an office job, like an admin job, and I hated it so much. And when I went in, I was thinking to myself, like, no one there, like whether they were nice people, not nice people. I don't think like people are working with, like, let's be fair, there's a couple of people I liked, but again, I thought like, I can't be like, I knew that I wasn't gonna be in that situation, but I was like, if this is what some people's like jobs are, like, how are they doing this? Like, I could never, basically. And like, I'm not saying that because like, I don't think anyone there actually enjoyed their job, but they're there. Obviously, you've got bills to pay, you've got other things to do, but like, why not work a bit harder and then like get a promotion into a different company that's a bit better, that, you know, is a bit more flexible.
I think if you have the privilege to choose where you work, you also have a moral obligation to choose somewhere that you enjoy working, either from the financial payoff you get for it or from the joy that you get from doing the job. I have a real ick moment when people go, I hate my employer, I have a toxic boss, my workplace is the worst, and I'm like, leave then.
Yeah.
Like if you're lucky enough to have an office job in a Western society that pays you well and has benefits and gives you paid annual time off, quit. Yeah. Go do something that you love or that pays you more so that you feel less nasty about it from there. Yeah.
I just feel like, obviously, people listening to this will be relatively motivated because you're not going to listen to a podcast if you're not going to listen to a podcast with like entrepreneurs or not if you're not. But I feel like we forget that in the UK, there's like 70 million people. Like, how many people actually listen to podcasts? How many people read? There are so many people out there who don't do that stuff. And it's just like...
It's the basics.
Yeah. But I feel like a lot of people, it's like, you know, it's our culture, it's our society. We're not taught to do that. Like, school's just like, get people in jobs.
It's also, though, school's curriculum is designed to create workers. It's not designed to create thinkers.
Yeah.
It's like, here's how to think, here's what to think, not how to think.
Yeah.
Which is why I hated school so much. I used to get into trouble so much. I'd always have my hand up being, what about this? What about this? What about this? Why? And I'd always be like, stop talking, stop asking back. Stop. And I'm like, I want to know why you've said that, not just that you've said it. Which the teachers didn't like very much.
My pushback on that though, because I went to do a talk to my school last week and I really enjoyed it. I really love speaking to younger people. And because they're more moldable. Like if I say the same thing to an adult or to a 16-year-old, like the 16-year-old, that could actually change their life. The adult is much less likely. But I basically said to them is like, you have to be at school till you're 16. You're likely going to be at school till you're 18 or college. Like you can either turn up and like complain or, you know what I mean, talk back, whatever. But also I would push back on what you did and say, you got to play the game. So like, you're going to have to be at school. Yes, you can like push back and say, why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? You can do that. But then when you realize that, you know, you're not getting your way here because these are the rules, you have to kind of play the game. So you can think that and don't ever like not think that, like stay true to your beliefs, but then be like, okay, well, I'm going to play a game here. I'm going to, you know, when I was at school, I don't think that many of my teachers were that great. So I got like a note from my mum saying, you know, Simmy has a dentist, didn't date it. And randomly I would just like say to the teacher, I've got a dentist. And like, I would just go home and study at home. But I wouldn't go home and play PlayStation. And it's just things like that. It's like I was playing the game because I realized the value in school, but also realized like I need it to suit me best. And the way it's going to suit me best isn't by blindly following the rules. It's by complying. It's by getting around them and ultimately like serving myself best. And again, it's just like, that's not having a negative impact on anyone else. Me not being in the class, well, there's more support for the other kids who need it. But yeah.
I would argue though that you're smarter than me. I wasn't smart enough to do that. I also think that there was a huge discrepancy between the way I was raised and the way that school teaches you. So we used to have like, and I'm really grateful for this, I've spoken about it before, but every dinner time we would have like real intense debates around the dinner table with my dad about stuff. And it would be like gender, politics, religion, war, like quite serious topics where my brother, my dad, my mum and I would talk about these things and often disagree actually. And we were really taught that you can disagree with someone's opinion, but still respect it. But you should voice your opinion when you don't agree with something. And so then when you have that at home and you're really encouraged to have a voice and really encouraged to speak up and which I'm so grateful for, because I'm acutely aware that that's a very unique thing. There's not many parents that raise their children to have a voice and to disagree with their parents in a safe space where it's not going to end up with you being punished for having that opinion. When you then take that into a school setting where a teacher teaches you something and you say, "Miss, I don't know if I agree with that. Here's why." And they go, "Shut up," kind of thing. And you go, "Well, why should I shut up?" And you're like, "Because I'm the teacher, you're the student." Like that then creates a bit of a, particularly when you're young, like I'm talking like 13, that creates this negative connotation of like, well, why am I here? Because I'm reading about this like you. I used to read everything. Like I was obsessed with classical civilization. I've read the Odyssey, like the Aeneid. I've read pretty much any Penguin classic that was available. I read, and I go back sometimes to my parents' house and I've got all the notes that I wrote like up the side of the book. I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. Like I remember doing Dracula and being like, well, this is quite subliminal messaging. Like, why is he biting her in the neck? And he seems to be in love. Like I've written like all of this stuff up the side. And I learned more about that kind of stuff outside of school than I did in it. And I think a big part of why I'm so motivated to learn now is because I did have one teacher at college that was like exceptional, and he really like it sparked my joy of learning. But up until that point, it was more like a fuck you then. If you're going to teach me bullshit, I'm going to go and figure out how to like sell sweets on the playground to make a profit. I'm going to go and figure out how to sell my toys outside the front of my house, or I'm going to go and start an eBay business like I did at 12 and make £7,000 in 1 year. Like I'm going to go do all those things because I'm not learning how to do what I want to do here.
Yeah, I completely get you. And that's why, like, when I'm going to school, obviously I really want to help the kids. And like, but I also appreciate that the teachers have asked me to come in, and I feel like a duty to like not be like, fuck school, basically.
By the way,
like,
being a teacher is the hardest fucking job in the world. Yeah. Like my mum was a teacher, and I've got like, a couple of friends who are teachers, and particularly in today's society, like, unless you're really little, where you luck out teaching those ones because they're super cute and they listen to everything you say and they think they'll hug you in the morning and like whatever. If you're teaching anyone above like 12, really, they're a nightmare.
Yeah.
Because you're so limited on what you can do in terms of punishment. You're so limited on what you can say to them. Like, and also we now live in a society where kids think it's cool to like be disrespectful to the teacher.
Yeah.
I would never, when I was younger, in my wildest dreams, be disrespectful to a teacher because there was a respect level there. And you knew that if you did that, like everyone would be like, what are you doing? Like they would think you're an idiot. Whereas now it feels like it's cool to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I get you. I think, I had a few questions that come up there and things I was going to say as well. What did your parents do? You say your mum was a teacher?
She was a teacher. So she was a teacher when she was younger, and then she became a director of a recruitment company, and then she was like our mum, basically. She was at home. My dad worked in finance.
Okay. And what type of school did you go to?
I went to loads of schools. So I was born in Australia.
Okay.
The tables have turned. Yeah. I was born in Australia and then moved over here when I was about 7 or 8 years old. Went to a local school near us when we were kids, and then went to a school that was like a little bit further away from my parents, and then went to a boarding school, hated that. And then I finally went to a college in central London, which was like, I was 16 before I was like, wow, like this is where I should be, you know?
Yeah. It's really interesting. I guess like different, like you're going to have a different experience with a school based on, you know, what type of school you go to,
100%.
What your parents do, like what your kind of, what your mindset is. But that's why like I would just say to like, it's about like being smart about it. So yeah,
I think that's true of outside school too.
Yeah.
It's like work, right? You said there's so many people that are in jobs that they hate.
Yeah.
Well, you could work a little bit harder, do something different, and then go and get a better job. Like that's playing the game, right?
Yeah. And it's just like, I feel like really lucky that I'm now like privileged. I'm now in a great position. So people will be like, oh, well, you can't say this, whatever. And I was like, well, I've been in a position where like, I was just like, you know, most of the people in the UK who are complaining.
Yeah.
And like, it's things where like, oh, I'm like, I can't say that. But like, nah, fuck it, I can say that. Where like, let's say we have a piece of content on Simmer and like, it's a bit like, someone's like, yeah, well, you can't make out like weight loss is easy, etc. And I'm just like, then I had like I made a response video to that. And I was just like, okay, I'm obviously not going to be disrespectful, but I said like, I don't understand when people use like low income or lack of money as an excuse for poor health. I get that, you know, like the best thing in the world is to have lots of money to buy whatever food you want.
The best food, organic, like all that kind of stuff.
But at the same time, it's just like growing up, you know, like I didn't have a lot of money, but, you know, instead of going on holidays or buying like, you know, a lot of like working class people, they're straight to buy the designer clothes. Why? To show, to convey that they're not working class, to convey that they have money. Well, instead of that, just spend that money on food, spend that money on gym membership. And the worst thing is, and the easiest comeback is just like, well, you're literally commenting on random ads on go and spend that time doing overtime, going for a walk, going to the gym, doing whatever you want. And it's just like, I've never understood like that victim mindset or like, you know, that like kind of closed mindset, like where there's like, oh, I'm just going to sit on social media and complain about things. Like, what is the point?
It's like every second that you spend complaining, you could be spending on yourself improving.
Yeah. And this is the thing that really gets me. I guess a lot of people listening to this will actually be, you know, entrepreneurs, or they'll be on social media. They'll probably have a personal brand. That's why they've come to this podcast. And the thing that I've never understood, and it's just like, it's very much like facepalm. Like when I see someone do this, I was just like, when someone comments or like has an argument or comments anything negative on social media, like when someone does that on one of my posts, I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, you probably look like an idiot. And also it's just like, it makes you look bad. I'm just like, even if I disagree with someone, I think someone's an idiot, I'm just like, okay, that's your problem. I'm not going to go out of my way to comment something negative and then have a back and forth with you.
It's such a waste of time.
I've just never understood it. And like, even if you hate someone, like I don't think I hate anyone, but even if you dislike someone or whatever, like what is the point commenting something negative on their post? Like, what's it going to do for you? It's going to drag you into an argument, a disagreement, and waste time. And there's so many times where like, maybe before I used to do this, when I would like, someone's comment would really piss me off and I'm like typing something back and I'm like, I'm going to like destroy you with this witty response or whatever. And it's going to get, do you know what I mean? Like lots of engagement. And I was just like, actually delete. Because even if I do that, is it actually making me look that good? Is it going to benefit me? And they're going to come back and I'm going to have to respond to them.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I very much like, if someone comments something that is just like stupid, I'm just like, well, you're coming onto my post and commenting something, well, either I'm going to delete you or I'm going to block you, whatever. I've got no use for you. Like, just go and do that somewhere else.
Yeah. It's funny. I want to get onto your personal brand in a minute, but it's funny because I used to get, and I still do, like get negative comments, which is fine. I actually quite like when people disagree with me because I think that opens up a discussion. And I always think the best conversations happen in the comment section, not actually on the post itself. But I used to get really nasty stuff, particularly on TikTok. Like people go after what I look like. They go after like everything. And the thing that makes me laugh so much is the number one thing that people go for on TikTok is like, oh, like OnlyFans model, like pretending to be an entrepreneur. I'm like, you think I'm pretty enough to be an OnlyFans model? Thank you so much. And then if I reply with that, then you can feel the steam like coming out of their ears from the other side. But the one thing I would say is like when people used to say nasty things like that, particularly like as it pertains to like, oh, like whatever, that used to really affect me. And I'd be like, no, I need to prove that like that's not who I am. And now I'm just like, bye.
Yeah.
Cool. I don't know anyone who's successful who's leaving negative comments on other people's
Exactly.
comments.
Yeah, like
except for maybe Elon Musk.
Exactly. I think you know that thing about like, you know, hate only comes from below. And that's just sort of like
the top are collaborating.
Yeah. Yeah, or not even on social media because they don't need to be.
Yeah, or have a team doing it for them.
Yeah, exactly.
They pay clout.
Yeah.
Do you feel like when you first started the business, I know, you know, most people at university, whether they're at Warwick or Bristol or any other university, they're going to be partying, they're going to be having fun, they're in the dorms, they're doing like all of this nonsense and you're starting a food business. Did you ever have any kind of judgment from your friends about that? Yeah,
like even when I was in sixth form, people were like, oh, you staying in tonight or like you still working or thing. I'm like, yeah. Yes, like I would go out every so often, but like it's a case of if I go out once a week and you're going out 3 or 4 times a week, that once a week for me is so fun. But the second, third, fourth time for you is like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's always about like optimizing. So yeah, I've never really, I guess there was a little phase like post university, maybe like 23, 24, 25, where I was like, no, probably like 23, 24, just graduated and graduated during COVID, where I was like, I kind of wish that I had gone to more things, more parties. I don't think I've ever been to a festival. I think in sixth form, I bought a ticket with a mate, and the week before I was like, fuck that. So there are occasional times when I think that, but again, I haven't thought about that for years because like, I don't now think about that. It's only like when I'm asked about, and think back about university. But I think like, I do things the right way because like now I am where I am.
And you can do the things that you actually enjoy doing, which is traveling with your family and doing all that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's like when I go traveling, occasionally I'll go with a mate, and like I think we've been traveling, like one of my very good friends, we've been traveling a few different countries together, and let's say we were like 21 when we first went traveling, and we did like Southeast Asia, the typical, like Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, went like Singapore, Bali, like Australia, like the craziest trip. And I remember like to this day that I did like, I think it was 8 weeks in total, and I spent 3.2k. Like all flights, everything, all food in. I was just like, that's like, people spend that in the UK now, and they like, so traveling isn't that like expensive. I was working when I was there, but also I think when I was there, I drank once, and I was like, I was 21. Like me and my mate both drank at the time. We drank at university, but it's just like, you don't need to do those things to enjoy yourself. But also that one time that we did drink, we speak about it now, how funny it was. Do you know what I mean?
Like,
Like
the best time.
Yeah, and it's like, I'm not saying that if we drank 8 times, we'd have 8 best times, but it's also about things being more special.
So it's interesting because at university, I was exactly the same. I literally went to lectures, did my stuff. If I didn't have to go, it wasn't mandatory, I didn't go.
Yeah.
And I spent, I'd be at university Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday if I had to be. But then I was working in a nightclub and event sales Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I worked in a clothes shop on Sunday, and I was running an eBay business at the same time. And that's because I felt like my time was more valuable in working in those jobs than it was in attending those lectures. And like even in summer, I was doing internships with PR agencies and whatever, just to get some kind of experience, so that when I did graduate, I had something more than just a degree. Because even then, graduating with a degree didn't really mean much. Like I graduated in 2012 and that like everyone had a degree. Like what was the thing that was going to separate you? And, like you said about spending your time where you're going to get the most ROI, for me, it was like, right, work. Because then I'm going to be different to every single other person that's applying for these jobs. I'm going to have work experience when they don't have any. And I didn't have a single party experience in university, not one.
Didn't go to a single party?
Nothing. No, didn't go to a single freshers thing, not a single house party, nothing. I had one friend.
Okay.
But that's because for me, it wasn't a priority.
Do you kind of wish that you had gone to like,
No, there's not a single part of me that's like, I wish I'd done that, because I actually think if I had done that, it would have been distracting and I wouldn't be where I am.
I get you. And obviously I'm normally the person saying like, oh, like you shouldn't be drinking all this kind of thing. But like,
I also was teetotal. I didn't drink alcohol from 18 to 21 years old.
Yeah. But like, do you not think that, having gone to one party, you'd probably have like a funny memory, like with that one friend even? Maybe.
But like I have other experiences. Do you know what I mean? I think I'm not a hindsight person.
Yeah.
Like I have a very fuck it personality, right? Like I'm very like, I want to do a skydive. Let's go do it. I want to go and do this. Let's go do it. Like I don't have the, oh, well, I should be working. That's not part of my psyche. If I want, like you said, if you want to do something, you do. If you don't, you don't. And I just didn't want to do it. I had no interest. None. I was already in that mindset. I'd already started a business, which was doing all right. Yeah. I'm just about to start my second. Like I was in a different headspace. And it's not because university was good or bad. I left with a degree. I don't know if I learned a huge amount, but I'm glad for the experience because it gave me 3 years to really like kind of piss around and save and buy my first car and move out and like all that kind of stuff. But the actual functionality of getting a degree and like the kind of social aspect of that, I was just like, whatever, I've already got great friends. Like I don't need to do this. And I don't think university is necessarily like the right way for a lot of people. So I find it interesting that they teach you everything you need to know to have a qualification in 3 years. Yeah. Like the things that I learned in those 3 years are arguably, I was doing a kind of like a creative course, right? It was applied communication and public relations, but I'd already learned everything that I'd learned in those 3 years in my 3 internships, which were spent a total of like 20 weeks doing. Yeah. Like I'd written actual press releases that went out to the press in like 6 months after I'd started my degree. We didn't even learn how to do that until the final year. Yeah. And it's like I had a friend, one of my employees, Danielle, she's not with the company anymore, but she was my first employee with Clout. when I hired her, she was finishing up her marketing degree, and they did one module on digital marketing.
Yeah.
One.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's so far behind. And so when I look at education, I'm like, well, what's a better way that we could do this? Well, maybe it is that we do a year. And so people do get that time and the social element and they, whatever. And then you go back and you do another 6 months, throughout the course of your career, as opposed to it just being all in one chunk. But I don't know. I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do it.
Yeah. I think when it comes to education, like, you know, there's that graphic where everyone's like, if you judge a elephant by its ability to climb a tree, you're going to think that people are stupid or stuff like that. And when I see that, I'm just like a bit like, but like the current education system is obviously not perfect, but is it actually the most practical? Because you have to have something.
Yeah.
You have to have some kind of structure. Yes, it can be improved, but also like you've got to remember that like it definitely can be improved, but I think maybe only by like 10%.
It needs to be mass adoption as well, right? Like everyone learns differently, and so how do you apply something that has to work for the majority?
Millions, right?
Yeah.
And that's why like I kind of get it, and it's a case of it's the most like it's the best blanket approach.
Yeah.
But I get what you're saying in terms of, you know, a lot of vocational courses, like you said, you can learn more in a job in 1 month than in a 3-year degree. Obviously there are degrees that aren't the same.
Oh, undoubtedly, like law, like all of that kind of stuff aside.
But also, it's a case of I think sometimes like when I speak to, I think a lot of people when they're speaking, they try and speak to everyone and they try and help everyone, but I'm just like, that's not going to work. So when I'm speaking, and that's why I really like speaking to university students and, you know, like sixth form students particularly, because they're a bit more receptive and have the autonomy to actually go and do stuff. Because like I speak to year 7s and 8s and they're like, oh, that's so cool, but like they're not going to do anything.
What are you going to do with them?
But when I'm speaking, I'm not like, let's say I speak to like 500 kids in assembly, I'm really speaking, I'm hoping to speak and resonate with 10. The 10 me's when they were at that age, because I can speak to the other ones, but it's going to go in through one ear and out the other. And like, you know, there's probably like 200 kids who are like, that's a bit of a motivation for this week, that month. Maybe they'll remember it in the future, but there's 10 kids who I hope they had kind of what I wish I had. And I guess that's where like, you know, I try to speak to those people who are like, your words are going to be useful. They're not going to go to waste.
You started out delivering Simmer. It wasn't called that then. We'll get onto that in a second. By foot. Was there ever a chance, like a time where you were like, we're only getting like one DM a week and I just give up. This is exhausting.
Yeah, but I would make sure that wasn't that case. So I would be like, you know, if we had a day where there's like 4 sales, I'm like, oh man, this is shit. Like I need to get more. I'm going to create more content. I'm going to, you know, chat to more people. I'm going to, you know, make sure that we get more sales.
And how did you get the word out when you first started?
So I didn't like use social media before. So when I went to Warwick, everyone had Instagram. I didn't have Instagram. So when I went to Bristol, I was like, let me make Instagram. But then I realized that I thought Facebook at my school was like uncool. Like no one used Facebook. That's not cool. But at university, everyone uses it because it's practical for like events. And like you can search someone's name easily. So then I realized that like Facebook was the best way to market it. And I made a page, not, you know, Facebook pages, their reach was really bad by that time. But I made it a person and I just added everyone. So the person was called Rice and Spice, added everyone. So straight away I've got like an audience of like, say, 1,500 people, 1,000 people. And the reach when I posted was higher because of the person and all your friends see it. It's like old Instagram where everyone sees it. And I would deliver a meal to someone. My first sales are like, oh, like a flatmate or someone who I'd on my course, or I would on the bus, like we'd have the bus that goes only students from campus to uni. As soon as the bus door was closed, I was like, okay, cool, you're my audience now. You can't move. Here's a business card, like every single person on the bus. And like, here's the Instagram, here's whatever. And, you know, maybe you get a few sales like that. But just really scrappy, unscalable ways of doing it. And then when I delivered to the person, I was like, oh, can we take a photo for the page and come up with like a funny quote? And some people would be like, oh yeah, let's do this. But most people are like, I'm not sure. So I had to convince them to do it and like kind of pressure them in a way. And then be like, oh, they're like, I can't think of a quote. Can you think of one more? We're like, yeah, great. Like now you've given me the chance to do it. I can make something that's way more engaging. And then I would tag them and all their friends would see it. And then everyone would be like, oh, that's so jokes. And so that's how it first started.
Word of mouth.
Yeah. And just like kind of being a bit like hacky with Facebook. And then, yeah, for that, like the tab picked it up and then they did an article on it and it was like, everyone went crazy about it. Cause like no one knew it was me. Cause I was just like, oh, like no one, I also like, that's why I made jerk chicken and not a curry meal, because like everyone's like, oh, it's curry, right? It's not healthy. I try to make it healthy. And then, yeah, everyone after like the tab article came out, they're like, oh, that's so cool. And like everyone on campus would be like, oh yeah, Rise and Spice is so sick. And that was really cool. And then I guess we had to pivot a lot when we've not gone away from students to, you know, normal working people, where we started in Hitchin, and obviously evolved over years.
Why did you change from Rice and Spice to Simmer?
Because Rice and Spice sounds like a takeaway. It sounds like, you know, a street food store, or a little, you know, like it was a bit too narrow. It's a bit too limiting. And everyone who knew about Rice and Spice loved it. People were like, oh, you shouldn't change your name. I remember the day before we rebranded, I was just like, well, like the day after we rebranded, I did like an Instagram story saying, oh, what name do you guys prefer? Like, so this is like 10,000 at the time, like followers who like loved us, were really engaged, and like more people said Rice and Spice. I was like, what? Like that brand's shit. Like what are you talking about? And now if you look back, people are like, I can't believe you've ever called Rice and Spice. Like that looks awful. And it's just a thing, like, you know, people will warm to things over time, but yeah, it didn't make sense. We did more than just Rice and Spice. You know, we had protein pancakes, we had, you know, brownies, we had pasta, we had, you know, various different things. And it wasn't like to a cold audience. Like if you had never heard about Rice and Spice and you just saw like our logo and brand, you'd be like, what kind of university project is it? What kind of like little, like that looks like someone's cooking at home. That looks like it's small time.
Which is what it was at the beginning, right?
Exactly. But you want to give the impression that it's not that, right? You want to like, so people trust you more. So people like buy into it more. There's a balance, right? People say that they want to support independent businesses, but they don't. Like they want to support independent businesses that deliver a
premium,
quality, a product that would be produced by, you know, big
and not independent business.
Yeah. So I guess that's the trade-off.
Everyone wants an artisan at scale.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I guess that was where we had to transition, and it took ages. We talk a whole hour about that, but I won't. I felt like, you know, everyone thinks they're unique, everyone thinks they're special, everyone thinks that they do things differently. The truth is that not many people do. But for us to go to like a typical agency who did all these rebrands for all these companies, I was like, that's not going to work. But then I was like, begrudgingly, yeah, let's start because we have to get this done. We started with an agency that, you know, had worked for, you know, all of your favorite challenger brands that are in retail. And it's just like, it was just cookie cutter. It was awful, but I was like, we paid for the first installment, let's keep going. And it was just like, got to the point where I was like, nah, like, we basically, at the second point then, like the second stage, I was like, I can't carry on with this. This is like, it's not good enough. Like, we're going to get to the end of this, spend like 30 grand and not be happy. Let's pull the plug now. And like, at the time, this guy must have been like, why did I ever work with Rice and Spice? They're just like some shit little business. I imagine now that agency sees us all the time and be like, oh, I wish we worked on that rebrand with them. But yeah, we stopped and I was like, so stressed. Like I've got so much to do. I need to keep the business going. Like we're really struggling. Like put the plug on the rebrand, pull the plug on the rebrand and pause. But that was the worst thing we could have done. And it was really then challenging. So then we revisited it, got some freelance to do it, ended up sacking one of them, the other one getting it done in the end. It was just like, it was the biggest like farce ever. And like since then, I had lots of people message me on like Instagram or LinkedIn saying, oh, love your rebrand so much. Who worked on it? I'm like, I wish I could recommend someone. I can't. So yeah.
Do you think in hindsight you should have just done it in-house?
No, because we needed some expertise. Like we needed some, and also like I was so close to it. We needed it in-house. That'd be me and like maybe one other person. Yeah. So I was so close to it that I needed someone to pull the answers out of me. Yeah. But the agency were like, no, we just get a few, like we do a little questionnaire with you. We do a little survey with you. Yeah,
that's fucking boring. Yeah.
And then like, you know, we'll present to you. And I was like, well, no, like I don't want to do that.
I really don't like agencies that do that because they miss the entire point of brand. Yeah. Like your brand is, it's not just, you know, the Simmer logo that you're wearing on the podcast today. We love that. Always be branding. It's not just your logo. It's not just your colors. It's not just your aesthetics. It's like, how does those things make people feel in relation to your brand? Like, for example, we have angles on our website specifically because we want to be seen as like sharp and innovative. Like, but you would only know those things if you'd actually spoken to you and like really understood the audience and understand your mission and understand where you're going with this and ultimately what you want to achieve and what you want people to feel with your business. Yeah. You can't do that on a questionnaire.
I was going to say that when you said I hate agencies who do that, and as soon as you said I hate agencies, I was about to jump in that I hate agencies too. But then I realised like
you're an agency, no,
partially that, and then what happened in my head is like yes, but like I don't like agencies, but I understand the value for them because not everyone's so resourceful like I am, and also the agencies that are like the senior people. Like I hate agencies where the senior people, the founder is a salesperson. They're like, there you go. Like I'm going to pass that on to junior talent. Like it's not going to work. But when the founder's like really in it and driving it and like has really like, you get these agencies and like there's one that we worked with recently where we've been sold by the founder, whatever. And then it's more of a, like from a technical side, it's not like anything brand, it's for like website. And then we sold on this great like thing, and we get it. And then like the people we'll be dealing with are offshore. I'm like, that's fine. You can be offshore and exceptional talent, but don't charge me like premium UK prices, like really like premium prices, and then give me like talent that and also they weren't good. So I'm just like, well, what's going on there. And I think
Sold the dream.
That's why, agencies sometimes get a bad rap.
That's the agency merry-go-round though. It's like, because most agencies are founder-led and they've been started by the founder because the founder was the expert in the thing, like mine. And then they hire people that are more junior, not as experienced, whatever. And you win the work, you pass it on. You're not happy with it 3 months later, you move on. You do the same thing. And I think it's why so many brands move around agencies like every 3 to 6 months because like it's the same thing.
Yeah.
I used to do that. I used to be, because we scaled so fast, I physically couldn't be involved in every single account. And it led to like loads of fucking problems. So we half the size of the business now and we're boutique, we're the best. I'm involved in every single account. And that's how I want it to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
definitely
how I want it to be. Okay. So one of the things that I think that separates what you guys do massively from your competitors, because let's be honest, meal prep is a very competitive space now. It's like having its moment. Like, I've tried loads of meal preps. Haven't tried Simmer though.
Yeah.
So I need to try your jerk chicken box. But I'm always disappointed by them. They're always like filled out massively with onions, like which I can't have. I've got fructose malabsorption, so I can't eat loads of stuff. And I'm always feeling like it would have been better if I just made it.
Yeah.
And I always think that their content's kind of the same as well. It's like, it's driven by this like message of like, are you busy? Are you this? Are you this? And the thing that I thought was interesting about Simmer, and I came across Simmer before I came across you, like maybe 2 years ago. And the thing that I thought was really interesting, it was like you really lead with this like family run business element. I think that comes across in your content. It comes across in your personal branding content. We've spoken already about like, well, it might have even been off camera about you and your dad going to Brazil and like that amazing trip that you took, and you pushing that kind of message out. And it makes me connect with your brand more. And I think a lot of businesses start and think that they can't put out this like mom and pop shop image because it's in some way going to feel unscalable and therefore people aren't going to buy into it. But actually I think with you guys it's the total opposite.
Yeah. I think also people buy from people, right? The reason why most brands aren't founder led is because the person isn't relatable or doesn't want to be in front of camera, and like in the nicest way not even the nicest way possible, but like a lot of businesses are started by very privileged people, and like they're like, well I'm not like, why do I want to buy from 37-year-old Dave who has been like really privileged and like is really boring in front of camera, like if you're, the worst thing is on LinkedIn, when you scroll and you get ads on LinkedIn, I'm just like, you get this on Instagram and stuff and TikTok, but now on LinkedIn and it's just always just like some random like middle-aged white guy who's trying to sell you something. I was like, I'm just going to scroll straight past that. Like, they all seem the same to me. I can't pick out one. And I think for us, it's like, it's exciting, it's different, it's relatable. So yeah, I think that's why people resonate with us. And also like, there's different aspects where we're like there's mum, there's dad, there's me, there's Jay. There's like kind of like different stories going on there.
It's like story arcs between the four of you.
Yeah. And it's like, for me, like a lot of like university students and graduates and people in their like 20s and 30s really love like the entrepreneurial side and the success side. And they're like, that's why they resonate with me. And then with Jay, there's like people who are like, oh, I want to like look and feel good. I want to be an athlete. Do you know what I mean? I want to be healthy. I want to be fit. And then with mum, it's just like, so many, like some of our biggest fans, our biggest supporters are mums.
Yeah.
And like, they're never going to buy the product because they don't need it or like, it's not right for them. But they're like, they're so nice. Like I would just get so many random messages from them. I was like, I love this so much. Or like, do you know what I mean? And like when we go on holiday, and it's just like they are kind of like, you know why people love athletes or like influencers is because like they're living that life and you're kind of living through them in a way. And I think a lot of like people, they can live through like different elements of our family basically. And like, I think it's just relatable as well. It's like, it's not like I said, there's 60, 70 million people in the UK. Like the people we see online, the 1%, they're not like us. They're not like normal people, but like we're like closest to the normal people as it gets to an extent.
That's why I'm such a huge advocate for people to putting out like raw, like unedited, where possible, underproduced content, because that's the stuff that actually people want to see. Everyone's so fucking bored of seeing like people on private jets sitting in a Lambo. It's not real.
Yeah.
And even if it is real for those people, it's not real for the majority of people. So what, like, it's kind of like this weird sort of, I know it's fake, you know it's fake, but we're all going to like it anyway. And I think people are coming on a bit more like, actually, why am I doing this now? Which makes stuff like what you guys are doing way more relatable. I don't know whether it was intentional or not, but the way that I look at branding, whether it's for a person or for a brand, is when you have an audience, you have two very clear sets of people that you're trying to appeal to. You want your community and you've got your customer. And I think you guys have done an amazing job of like building a community around you that really root for you as a family, who aren't necessarily going to buy from you, but they're like your biggest advocates. They're the one that are sharing the stories. They're, you know, typing on your comments. They're like giving you all that engagement. And then that's what gets the attention of your customer, who then do acquire what you're selling.
Yeah. Like, again, it's very anecdotal, but when we went to Italy recently with the parents and Jay, we did like a day trip to Lake Como, and we were on a boat like in the middle of Lake Como, and obviously it's very touristy. And some guy was just like, "Oh, wait a minute, I recognize you." And it's like, "Oh yeah, like so cool. Like how's it going?" And like they have this conversation, and it's just like, "Oh yeah, like I've never actually bought your stuff, but the other day I recommended you to one of my mates because." Just conversation, you know, this kind of thing you talk about, food, meal prep. It's like, I was using like a competitor, and he's like, haven't you tried Simmer? And like, he's marketing for us. He's like selling us. And I was like, he's not a customer. He maybe never will be a customer. And I think that happens quite a lot with different people, and that's great.
That's like the ring of influence though. Like I think so many people ignore that. They go, oh, this is our customer. Here's who we need to be focused on exclusively. And it's like, for someone to buy from you, they have to have like bought into your brand across 16 digital touch points before they even go to your website. It's so much easier to target them and then community and then the ring of influence around those people. Like you said, your like mums, like, you know, people who might be that interested in the gym, but like aren't really interested in meal prep, but like they're interested in like seeing what you guys are up to. Like, and that's where you get that, what we call internally like retargeting, right?
Yeah.
So if someone like goes on Amazon, adds a light bulb to the Amazon thing, and you don't check out, you obviously get retargeted loads. The kind of brand real life version of doing that is having your face in their face as much as humanly possible. Some people, oh yeah, Milka, oh yeah, I've heard of this brand. Have you heard of Simmer? Yeah. Even if you've never bought, like I've never bought from you guys, but I like follow your socials and like whatever. So it kind of like proves my point. Your mum was your first employee, right?
Yeah.
How did that go? Well, how is that going?
Well, she's now like retired. She doesn't have to do anything. Which is it's going great.
That was your goal, right? You're like, I want to retire my parents.
Yeah, exactly.
Smashed it. Well done.
So initially when I started in Bristol, I was doing it myself and I was like, oh, this is so fun. Like I called Jay and like I speak to him every day anyway. And I was like, it's going so well. You and mum just started back in Hitchin. So we have like 2 branches. And he was just like, nah, like I ain't doing that. He's just like, I just want to focus on football. He was like, nah. He was just like, nah. So I was like, okay. And I was like, we're going to do that. But how do I kind of do it? So I was just like, okay, mum, I'm going to market it. And then when people used to message, I was like, they're like, can I order? And I was like, also like because I just have my mobile number on there, people would call up and they'll be like, oh, I wouldn't know who's got it. It could be an internship. It could be like anyone calling me, right? So I'll be like, hello. And they'll be like, hello. And then like, maybe they'll be like, do you want to, is this Rice and Spice? And I'll be like, oh yeah. Can I take your order? Where are you based, etc. But like, I don't want to be like, hi, Rice and Spice. And they'll be like,
yeah, and it's an
oh, this is an
Google
internship.
calling.
Yeah, like what's going on here? But then I'll be like, oh, do you want a delivery in Bristol or Hitchin? And they'll be like, what is going on? Like there's 2 most random places. Like, and if it was Hitchin, I'd be like, hey, mum, can we do this order? I'm like, let me call you back. Call mum. Are you at home or are you at Tesco's? Like, where are you? Like, would you be able to cook this and deliver this? And I'm like, call them back. Yeah, we can deliver to you. Can you, do you want me to like pay here or do you want to pay cash? And like, it's just an absolute like mess. So we did that. And then Jay was just like, I'm going to have to help her because like, I knew he would eventually have to do that. that's how it started. And then,
So you basically strong-armed your brother into the business. I love that. You played the game.
Yeah.
I love that. And now, like, obviously, like, your mom's retired now, but how has it been, like, working with your family? Because I feel like a lot of people, like, never work with your family, never work with animals. And it's like, actually, it looks like you guys have thrived off it.
You say never work with your family, never work with animals?
Yeah. Animals, children, family.
People say that? I haven't heard that. Okay, it makes sense.
I think it's like Ollie's smiling. It's like a thing for like film, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've heard never work with your family. I think it depends who your family are. So like if you...
facts.
Do you know what I mean? Like it's like saying, oh, never work with, I don't know, something random, never work with vegans. Well, it depends who they are. Never work with, tall people. Well, it depends who they are, right? You can't just say never work with your family. Like some families are really close and trusting. Some families like hate each other, right? So I think it really depends on who you are.
I love that. Like I could never work with my family. I love them to death and I trust them implicitly with everything, but there's just too many differences and styles of working and communication. And I suppose it's like when you choose who you want to be in a relationship with or who you're friends with or any kind of relationship that you have, whether it's an employee or whatever, there needs to be like a mutual understanding between the two of you in order for something to win and also for you to both understand what role you play in that relationship.
Yeah. I get there are complexities with family, but if you're like clear on certain things, but I guess like anything, like it's like arguably I would say it's maybe worse to work with friends than family.
Yeah.
To an extent, right?
I would agree with that. I've worked with a friend before and it just didn't. It irreparably changed our relationship.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, that I would say there's always going to be complexities, and it's just like it works on a case by case basis. If you can work it out with them, then it's fine. If you can't, and I think you can tell. Like if you test it, you're like, yeah, okay, that's not going to work, or oh yeah, this could work. So
looking back, were there any moments where you were just like, oh my god, like family
with family?
eye roll.
Yeah, definitely. It's just like there were low moments where like the business isn't going well. You get home, like we used to get home at like 1, 2 a.m. sometimes after like cooking in the unit. Like the car journey, silence. Like it's only like 3 moments. It was really, but silence because everyone's exhausted. Like you're just sitting there like, oh, we're gonna have to get up in like 5 hours to do this again. And it's just like that those tough moments. When you look back, like sometimes like if anything's like, let's say when we were on holiday and I was a bit stressed because I'm working, and then Jay was just like. If I told you 2 years ago that this would be your problem now, that you're stressed because you're working on holiday, and like you would have taken that. Do you know what I mean? When we were doing this amount of revenue, we had all these customers, we had this team, you'd bite your hand off of that. So I think it really gives very nice perspective as well. And it's just like, if ever you find yourself complaining, you'd be like, well, I've been there and that was awful. So like anything's better than that.
My favorite reality check is don't complain that your plate's too full when your goal was to eat.
Yeah.
Like I always come back to that. Like anytime I'm feeling overwhelmed with like the volume of work I have or how many things I need to do, or like for example, today and yesterday have been like from the minute I woke up to the minute I go to sleep is full.
Yeah.
And I've like had times I've looked at that and just gone, oh my God, how am I going to do that? And I'm like, actually, let me reframe that. I'm lucky.
Yeah.
If I looked at that diary 4 years ago, I'd be like, oh my, you get to speak to Simmy on a podcast and like that's your job. Oh my God, you get to speak at King's College tonight and that's your job. Mm-hmm. Like you can't complain when your goal was to eat.
Yeah. And I feel like there were times when I'm frustrated. I'm like, oh man, this is long. But I'll be like, I'm never thinking, I'm going to quit. I want to do this. I'm just like, well, yeah, let me get through this as quickly as I can. Like, let me make a better plan. Let me like re-update my plan because it's gone out the window and just get through it. So I can get back to where I want to get to.
Obviously, early doors, you guys realized the power of personal branding like fast. Did you know what you were doing was personal branding?
No, I didn't even know it was called personal branding. When we started, again, I was complete like now, like often I'll get recognized. I'll be like, oh, you Simmy guy, and like they'll be like, oh, so I love your business, etc. But like. You'd be shocked to know that when we first started, I was completely anonymous. I didn't want people to know it was me because I was like, oh, who's going to trust me? I'm young, like, et cetera, like make it professional. But then what I realized is that like whenever we're posting, like everyone says it, as a business, you don't want to be posting like boring product shots on your Instagram, like selling product. And we've done that. We've tried that. It doesn't work, right? So whenever we post about like, when I post stuff that I want to talk about, it does really well. So I'm like, well, I'm going to carry on doing it. And it's very unique, especially on like obviously now things are changing on LinkedIn. I notice when people are just like, I wrote a post like that. Like, and like you can see how lots of people are trying to do certain types of storytelling, whatever. But like, I just create what I like, and because I like doing it, it's gonna be better quality.
Yeah, I always think if you enjoy doing it, it's going to people will enjoy engaging with it.
Exactly, and like obviously, I'm always thinking, how can I bring this back to Simmer? But like also like just don't force it. Like on LinkedIn, for example, like yes, we get like people signing up to Simmer all the time saying I found out about you through LinkedIn, but like let's say I can get like 80 new subscribers or 100 new subscribers through LinkedIn a month with Simmer. I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. Like if someone, obviously you work with lots of clients, if they're like, you can get 100 paying customers, new customers a month through LinkedIn, that's unbelievable. It's like, yeah, but I'm not selling a 10 grand a month retainer. I'm selling, a 60, 50 quid a week subscription. So it's different. But also I'm like, I'm not doing it to make money from it. I'm doing it because I enjoy it. And indirectly it will help the business.
By proxy. Yeah.
And also like I'm refining my skills when it comes to content.
It's funny, I always say that to clients. They're like, so what's the ROI going to be? Yeah. And I'm like, this is a branding exercise. This is a top of funnel, get your face in people's faces, get them to know like that whole point of like recognizing you. Oh, you're the Simmer guy. Oh, you're the clout girl. Like I get that all the time. And it's because I'm constantly in people's faces. And that's the goal with personal branding. You want to be the most recognized face in your industry, not we got 1,000 leads from that LinkedIn post, because that's not how branding works. Brand is perception, it's feeling, it's sentiment. It's really hard to measure that in direct sales. But what you can do is you can look at the performance of personal branding activities, particularly on like platforms like LinkedIn, in line with like what's the volume been through on our website, what's the increase in our sales been like, what's the increase in our like leads been like, and normally there's a direct correlation between the two. I genuinely think LinkedIn is one of the most slept on platforms ever. I spoke to someone yesterday. I'm looking for an agent at the minute. And she was like, yeah, we don't really like most people don't even really look at LinkedIn, which is really stupid because like there's so many amazing creators on there. And I was like, that's mental. Yeah. I get like 1 to 2 million views a month. Like when I don't even try. Yeah. And that's an opportunity for other brands to collaborate with me and like whatever. And like agents aren't even looking at that. It's nuts. Yeah. It's nuts.
I went through a phase where I'm like, I had a few like brand deals on like different platforms. If it's like TikTok or LinkedIn, etc. And whenever people would reach out to me, it would always be like, oh, like an accountancy, like a massive accountancy firm who have a huge budget. And like, oh, we'd love for you to produce this video for Instagram or this video for TikTok. And I was like, okay, I can do that. But why don't you like, I was like, here's my LinkedIn. And they were like, like, all of the metrics are way better, bigger audience, way more reach. Like, and they're like, oh no, like we're focusing on these. And I was like, okay, fair enough. Like, okay, I'll do that. I'll get paid for doing that. Great. But then it got to the point where like, I was like, did you say you were looking for an agent? Yeah. And then like, I had someone who was like, he was really great. And he was like, yeah, I'll work with you. So I'll basically be your agent for this. And like, yes, we can look at doing some LinkedIn stuff, but we'll look at other platforms as well. And then like people would come in and I was like, even at like, there's times where like I've turned down like, like 7K for a post. Cause I'm just like, I don't want to do it. I don't need the money. Yeah. And so I even said to the agent guy, I was like, do you know what? Like at the moment, like let's just pull the plug on it. Like just what's the phrase?
Pull the plug.
There's another one.
Put the pin in it.
That's the one.
Put the plug in it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, okay.
I don't know how putting a plug in a balloon would work, but yeah.
So I was just, let's just leave it for a bit. Obviously, I said that more elaborately. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But I just don't want to do it. Yeah. And it's nice to know that, like, dream brands were reaching out, like 3 years ago. I was like, I hope I get a brand deal with this person. And I did it. And then I was like, well, they're like, should we do another one? And I was like, nah.
Yeah. I've done 1 to date. Yeah. Like, oh, sorry, that's a lie. I've done 3 to date. Yeah. 1 was with LinkedIn. Yeah. And 1 was with SEMrush. Yeah. And like, they're the only ads I've done. And that's because they're products I love and use and whatever. And we've just signed 2 more, again, with brands that I love. Like, and actually I reached out to them. Yeah. So I was like, hey, Planable, love your product. Like, pay me to promote it because I already use it. I already like spend, most of my team use it. Yeah. So like, let's work together. And they were like, love it. Let's do it. So now we're working together. And I think there's 2 things to that. 1, I didn't build my personal brand to monetize it for paid stuff. Like if I'm recommending things to people, it's because I genuinely love using that. And so I would never be able to deal with a brand that I'd never used or hadn't ever, whatever. Like, I don't need I'm very lucky. I don't need the money, but also I don't want to be that person. Yeah. But the second thing is, I think when you constantly promote stuff to your audience, they get bored of it and they're like, they see you as less authentic. So as long as you can obviously if you want to get paid for them, they need to be big if you're going to do them few and far between.
Exactly.
But once you've built the audience, as long as that stuff is authentic and you genuinely believe in it, like they will buy from it. They will buy you, and that's what will get you bigger deals as well.
Yeah. I feel like I'm really lucky that I've had this growth so quickly. Well, not so quickly, but like I've always been working on personal brand and never doing brand deals.
Yeah.
And then when it's become like, there's a bit where like I wanted them, they didn't really want me. And then I got a few. And then I'm like, well, now I'm growing more and like more people reach out. I'm like, well, actually, now I don't want them.
Yeah.
And it's a really nice, like, I said this, like I did a deal with like a huge, I don't want to say it because it sounds bad, but like a massive, what's it called? But they do like business stuff, right? And it was fine. Like, obviously it's like, I was talking about the business, not really about the product. I subtly talked about the products.
And that's the best way. It's proper like branded content then. It's organic.
But then when I was doing it, I was just like, I'm having to do this. And I felt like I was doing a job. And then like when I have to, I only ever feel like I'm doing a job when I have to liaise with like external people. And like, I was going back and forth with the agents. I was like, I was literally like, nah, like, what am I doing? Like going back and forth with these people. And then I had to chase, like, it gave me head loss because I did it and I forgot about the money. And it was like, I was like, wait, hang on a minute. They owe me,
paid,
they owe me like,
the payment terms are normally mad. Like 90 days.
Like, hang on a minute. And it just gave me head loss. I was like, I was then chasing it, not because I wanted the money, but like for the principle. And it's just a bit like
no, sorry, you've done a job. You need to be paid. It's not about chasing money. Like that's mad.
And then this is funny. Okay, this is one of the best things about LinkedIn. And this is what I want to use it for going forward. Not use it for, but like I don't want to monetize it. But one of the advantages that I want is like if we want to work with. So like I was like, hang on a minute, these guys are like mugging me off a bit. Like I'm like, I've done the thing for you. Like what's going on? And they're being slow to get back to me. So I was like, let me go on LinkedIn and go and find the UK director or the head of UK, connect with them, say, oh, hey, by the way, I worked on this project, really like great project, blah, blah, but I've not been paid and it's been like beyond the payment terms. Next day, payment dropped.
Yeah, of course.
And it's just so funny how like you should do that kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? And that's the great thing about LinkedIn. We had an issue with our bank literally last month. And I'm like, why are we getting awful support when we're actually giving them significant money?
Yeah.
Reached out with like, someone senior at the bank.
Problem solved.
Money drops straight away.
That happens to me all the time. Whenever I have any kind of issue, I always go and find someone who can help me on LinkedIn and they sort it out straight away.
Yeah.
Or if I want something.
Yeah.
Like case in point, like, the brand that I mentioned, like I reached out to their CMO on LinkedIn.
Exactly.
Like the thing is, I think if you don't, closed mouths don't get fed. If you don't ask, you don't get. And I think a lot of people are too scared to ask because they feel like, well, I'm working really hard. Like they should just give it to me. That's not how the world works. Like people move on. I think the more outward you ask for things, the more you actually get. And that's why I think a lot of maybe entrepreneurs and business people get like an aggressive, potentially perception because like you are much more of a go-getter and just go and like reach out and ask for stuff instead of waiting for people to give them to you. Yeah,
I would say it's proactivity. And like it's never rude, it's never disrespectful. It's just like a lot of people like they just forget. Like the amount of times when people ask me for things and like because I get so many emails. I get so much, and so much of it is just spam. So I just
block them. Yeah, I do that
block
too.
Add to spam. Like I have to do it like every day. And then some of them are like, that's a bit interesting, but also I'm busy, so I'm not going to respond to that. And they'll follow up. And then it's like,
it's normally like the third or fourth follow up. Yeah,
I might. Go on then, let's do that. But yeah, it's just like most people just won't follow up. Obviously, it's annoying when there's automated follow-ups as well, and it's just like, okay, I don't want that. I
genuinely think the follow-up is the most important part of a sales thing. Like there's so many conversations that I've had where people have just forgotten and I've been like, hey, and it's not, I don't automate everything, it's all me, but I get automated reminders to reply, right? Yeah. And I think that's really important. If you can remember things as well, like I used to do this when I was in sales. It always worked charm. I'd ask them all questions in the initial call, knowing they weren't going to buy from me, but I'd ask all these questions to them and I'd make notes of them in my diary. So they're like, oh yeah, it's like little Susie's like play next week. I'd be like, little Susie's plays on next week. Yeah. So like I'd remember that and then I'd message them being like, hey Mark, like I hope your daughter's play went well. And they'd be like, oh my God, like, and they feel super seen then. Yeah. And I apply that same methodology with my content. So all of the content that I create is of course things that I want to create, but it's all with the person that I'm trying to speak to in mind. So for example, I did a meme on Monday, which was like when someone sends you a connection request on LinkedIn and then sells to you 30 seconds later, and it was like me with a happy face, me with a sad face. And like, how many people can relate to that? I'm trying to speak to people who are on LinkedIn, who are trying to build on LinkedIn, and we all get sent spam messages as soon as we've connected with someone all the time. Yeah. And so that's like my point is you need people to feel seen in what you're saying in order to get that resonance. And that's why your storytelling does so well. You're talking about trying to retire your dad and like trying to build this business and like all of this kind of stuff, and people can all see themselves in your content, which is what makes it so relatable. What's your favorite platform?
I don't know. I feel like, things have changed over time, and like I used to love LinkedIn so much, and now it's become like quite like hacky, and like now every man and their dog is an expert on entrepreneurship. I'm like, well, hang on a minute, what have you actually done? Do you know what I mean? To an extent, or just everyone's trying to do certain things. So I'm a little bit, I can't lie, like the last year or so, LinkedIn, I'm a bit like
fatigued.
Yeah. But I still love it. Like it's still great, but it's just become less great maybe. I think I like TikTok. I think TikTok is great. I like how it's a bit more meritocratic. Like if you have 1,000 followers or 1 million followers, like you get judged on each post, each video. So I like TikTok. Obviously there's lots of like nonsense on it, and lots of like, you can just get lost in it. But yeah, for me as like a business owner, as an entrepreneur, I like TikTok. Instagram's all right. Like it's just all right. That's it pretty much. What other platforms are there? Obviously there's YouTube. YouTube's cool. I would love to do YouTube, but again, it's time.
It's effort.
I would need more of a team to do that. Like I can't do that on my own.
You should do a cooking talk show.
As in like, basically like podcast, but you eat food.
Like a podcast, like with you in like a kitchen, and like the guest gets to pick what you guys are cooking, and you both have to cook the dish, and like you have the podcast while you're cooking.
I'll be honest, this is another thing that people ask me. Like I used to love cooking growing up. I loved it so much. And then when I was like cooking like 12 hours a day, I got like PTSD from cooking. So now I don't cook. So, okay, how about this then? Second brand idea. You're both in a set kitchen. Yeah.
And you eat simmer meals.
Yeah. Okay,
like you have to, you're all going through the process of like working in the microwave, like do whatever you want. You've got to serve it all up, and then you sit down at the table, and then you have the podcast like that.
Yeah. Like what's that?
People would love that.
What's the really popular YouTube in America that, what? Hot Ones? You know, when they have the chicken wings. Yeah. It's like.
Oh yeah, with the chicken wings. Yeah.
That's like, I think it's like one of the most popular
But because people love, there's a psychology behind it as well. When you watch someone do something, you're more likely to continue watching it while they're talking. It's why you see those TikTok videos that have got the Minecraft underneath and then the podcast above, because it keeps the watch time going, because you're watching the Minecraft thing while you're listening to people talk.
That's how you get men to talk about their emotions, apparently, is have their frontal cortex.
That's how you get men to talk about their emotions, apparently, if you have their frontal cortex.
That's why men chat in like the gym or the barbers or watching football.
Love that. There you go. But I love barbershop talk. I think it's such a good concept. What have you found content-wise that's worked best for you? Like in terms of storytelling.
Yeah, just telling the story, or like if something like, again, it's a thing that the best posts are the ones that take 2 minutes to write. The ones that take days to write, like
get 2 likes.
They're forced. Do you know what I mean? Like they're. So yeah, just like obviously for me, like my favorite videos are like the Simmer story or retiring dad or paying off a mortgage. I love those, and like I'll get comments on them like now still, and I'll go back and rewatch it, and I'm like, like it just makes you feel so proud and so happy. So I love that. I quite like video, although it takes a while, and I think it's like what makes us different. I love the content where it's like, it's really me. Like sometimes I feel like, I need to do this because I think this will provide value to someone else, and it's good. And it's good to do those kind of posts. But like when it's a bit more like contrarian, where I was like, okay, this is a view that I know a lot of people won't have, but some people will, or it will open their eyes up to it. I like that kind of content as well.
Polarizing. Not controversial, but polarizing.
I wouldn't even say polar. I would more say like, it's the kind of thing you don't think about, but like, I hear it.
Right.
And that's the thing, when I said like, when people like argue with me in comments, if you disagree, that's fine. But I also don't post stuff like that. Like, I think it's quite logical. So it's just like, obviously when people like, the only thing that you could kind of disagree with when I'm like, when you talk about like having to work a lot, like as an entrepreneur, it's like, it's true. And what I hate is that entrepreneurs who be like, work-life balance, all this kind of stuff. I'm like, well, you're not.
You just exited 200 million quid and you're sitting in your Ivy Tower.
Not even them. I feel like the people on LinkedIn more so who like I disagree with are the entrepreneurs who their business isn't going well, but they've got lots of opinions and they're trying to educate people and stuff. I'm like, sure, create content and like the stuff that you know about, but then don't come into my post and say, this is misleading about like, work-life balance. Well, I'm like, well, you might not work on Saturday and Sunday, but you're probably not present in what you're doing because you're worried about your business. And on Monday, you're like, I'm back into this. Whereas like, I don't worry about Monday. I'm obviously switched on all the time. Sometimes I'm like, this is stressful, but that doesn't happen Monday. That can happen any day of the week.
Yeah.
And it's just like that kind of thing where it's just like, I'm talking about things that I know about, and I feel like can provide value to people. I wouldn't post something that is just like for likes
nonsense,
or do you know what I mean? Like,
I hate people that share stuff online and give advice to people that they haven't done themselves.
Yeah. And that's what I feel like LinkedIn's becoming, where there's a lot of people on LinkedIn who, there's so many people who are like these entrepreneurs. I'm like, what have you done? And it's just like, do you know what I mean? Like, I try not to give too much advice, even though I feel like I've done a lot. I try to like more share stories and add like,
but there's lessons within them, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
And that's why they're so powerful, because you're like, well, I did this and this is how I did it, rather than being like, you need to do this.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most authentic way to do it as well, because you wouldn't go up to a friend and be like, you need to do this. You'd be like, well, when I did it, like I tried it like that. And I feel like it's just more engaging that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like there's the problem with social in general, there's a lack of originality. I think that's the main problem. And also people are saying what they think they need to say, not what they actually think.
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
Because they're just trying to play the algorithm, but then they end up failing. So yeah, like they're trying to say, I'm going to do this because it's going to get likes. But actually it doesn't, because it's just like, they don't understand it truly. And I think people think short term. I think the reason why we are doing well on social is because for the first 4 years, we grew very well organically, because like I just had to teach myself social and I could fail and it doesn't matter. And like, no matter what, we've got a good
not
customer
worried about
base.
looking silly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm not worried about investors. I'm not worried about, I have to hit this thing. I think where people come into it later, they're like, I need to be posting on here. I need to be posting on there. I need to get sales. And it's like,
A chore.
they think too short term and they're a bit desperate. So like it's forced. And I think the best content is content that's not forced.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think to your point about people that don't take risks, I think it's because people are so scared of looking silly online. And I really don't care about looking silly online. So I'm happy to test stuff. I'm happy to share bloopers. I'm happy to swear. I'm happy to like whatever. I'm happy to say things that I know people will disagree with, because it's my channel and I don't care.
Yeah.
But to your point, I'm very lucky. I don't have investors. I bootstrapped. We started the business with 1,400 quid in my literally my bank account, my mortgage due the next week, and like no plan B. But like that, and so I have no one to answer to. I've got no one who's going to call me and be like, I can't believe you put that up. And I understand there is a nuance with people who do have investors and do have backers and do have shareholders, etc. Like there are things that you can and can't say, but at the end of the day, people relate to people and they buy from people, whether you're selling a B2B software platform, whether you're sharing prep meals, there is an individual making that buying decision. And I think the more that you can relate to them on a human level, the more likely they are to want to do business with you. And it's why things have always been done on a fucking golf course.
Yeah.
Like people buy from people always.
Yeah. I feel like on that as well, it's just like, I know a lot of people online, it's like, they're not who they are. They're trying to just, I think, and some of them can be really successful doing that. Some of them aren't successful doing that. But like, there are times where like, someone in my team, we should post that. I'm like, nah.
I don't agree with it.
I can't be putting my name to that. Like, and again, like, even if we post something for Simma, like, at the end of the day, it's my name. People feel like it's coming from me. Like, I can't be doing that. And I feel like maybe the reason why, like, people resonate with us and they stop us like, I love your stuff, because like we are who we say we are online, and like it's quite like personal to us, and it's also like it's distinct. Like we'll have a particular tone of voice, we'll have a particular like views on things, and people know us for that. So like the amount of times when people stop me, they're like, how are your parents doing? I love this holiday. I'm like, yeah.
Like that was the first thing I said to you. I was like, how was your trip in Brazil?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing, because like you feel like
we've never met before.
You feel like you're chatting to a mate. Like, how's your dad doing? Do you know what I mean? And again, I'm lucky that my business is easy to understand. I'm not selling some random niche software. I'm selling, healthy, convenient meals. Everyone's like, like the way that someone will find out about me on LinkedIn telling a story about business, or not even about like what type of business, be like, this is the lesson, or this is what we did. And I'm like, okay, what does he do? Simmy the guy, he sells us healthy meals. And then they'll be like, it'll come up in conversation. It's just so easy to put Simmer into conversation, which is great.
But also it's like the right ecosystem, right? You're an ambitious entrepreneur. You're like building something, you're building in public. Yeah. People who are going to follow you are probably also quite ambitious, also quite they're probably going to have a focus on health, focus on food. Yeah. Like it's the perfect ecosystem.
The funny thing when you say about building in public, I saw some people like maybe in like 2022 or 2023, they're like, I'm going to commit to building in public. And I was like, what does that mean? What are they talking about? And they're like, I thought maybe I should do that. And I realized that's what I'm doing anyway. Yeah. But it's just like people
take them on the journey.
Yeah. But also like a lot of people, like they have certain phrases for things and they do something because they're like, we should build in public, or we should be vulnerable, or we should be authentic. But I'm just like,
speak you.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's easy for us to say now, but like you test what works. Like before when I was trying to like not be me. I was like, when we first started Simmer, so Rice and Spice, and I was talking the stories, I would try and put my corporate white voice on. I'd be like, oh, and I would like try and speak like in a certain way. And I was just like, that's not me. Like, why am I trying to do that? So again, like you have to just learn.
But I went through that too, right? Like I think everyone goes through that, even at work. Like when you first start a job, you're very like prim and proper and like whatever. When you're first in a relationship, you like put on your best behavior. I think everyone is scared to show the world who they are because it's much easier to get rejected for someone you're not than it is to be rejected for who you are.
Yeah. And it's easy saying that as an entrepreneur with no investors as well.
Yeah. 100%. The minute that someone says to me, oh, you're completely different to how I expected you to be, is the minute I know I failed.
Yeah.
Like I want people to be like, oh, you're exactly the same as you are in real life. And I get that all the time. But like the minute someone goes, oh, you're different to what I expected, like I failed for my personal brand 100%. What's next for Simmer and for Simmy?
Yeah. I think people have been asking me for the last like 5 years, what's next, and it's just like, I've always told them the same thing, just like more of the same, just keep on doing what we're doing and serving more people. So when we're serving, 100 meals, so we're like, oh, well, I want 200. When we're serving 200, I want to get to 400 and so on and so on. It's just like, you don't need to overcomplicate things. Yeah. Just so like, I'm sure there's some kind of like great phrase about this, but it's just like, simple things like just executed again and again.
World-class basics.
Yeah, it's going to get you to where you want to get to. So yeah, like I even say like, if we don't grow at all ever again, I've built like the most unbelievable business and like I could do this for the rest of my life. Again, we want to grow. We want to keep on, doing more things and evolving and, like slowly improving new things, like launching new lines, like hiring more people in the team, like all of these things. So like in one way, yes, there is like more that we're going to be doing that's different and new, but it's also not that different. It's just like more of the same.
I love that. I genuinely believe the businesses that are the most successful are the ones that have permanence in mind. Mm-hmm. Like they're not like we're going to exit in 5 years. They're the ones who are like building for future and building for fun.
Yeah.
And it seems like you really, really love what you do, which is I think the epitome of success. Last question. If you have to be known for one thing for the rest of your life, what would it be?
I feel like it would be easy for me to say Simmer because it means so much. It's not a business. It's like, if in like 40 years, 50 years time, my mates are like, oh man, like, or someone's like, oh, you remember Simmer? Like, or Simmy, do you remember the guy who like started the business from uni, retired his parents, like paid off their mortgage, like, he did lots of cool different stuff. I've like, if I do nothing else, I've done enough basically. But obviously I want to now do more and more. I don't know, like when sometimes like people ask me, like if you did sell your business, what would you do? And everyone's like, oh, you start another business. And I was like, I don't know if I would, because if I was going to start another business, I'd carry on with Simmer. Never say never. But I feel like what I actually really enjoy is talking to, as I've said a few times, like younger people, because it's more satisfying. So like what Jamie Oliver did with, healthy food in schools, could I do that with, entrepreneurship or mindset or whatever? I think in particular that I like doing things where there's value, and I can speak to, like the amount of times I get asked to go on like podcast or talks and stuff like that. And I said yes, because I felt like I like your person around and I thought it'd be a good conversation as well. But I don't want to do that. Like, but when like my teacher emailed me, said, oh, do you want to come back to school and talk? I was like, yeah, I'm there. And I was like, he was like, what do you want to do? Do you want to do year 7 and 8 or 8 to 9? So I was like, I'll do both. Like, let's do it back to back. And then I'll do it for sixth form as well, because I feel like the 1 hour with them, I can like have a way bigger impact than 1 hour talking to corporates, or, you know what I mean? Yeah.
I love that. Impact. Yeah. But and I think you're impacting people, and like, it's amazing you're doing all that work at school, but I think even with your brand and your vulnerability and you showing up and you telling, we talk about building public online has impacted a lot of people as well. So I think you're awesome. And I'm so glad we got to meet. Like, as I said, I've been following you for a minute. So thank you so much for coming on the Branded podcast and for sharing just a little bit more about who you are and what Simmer's been up to.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode. I absolutely love doing these podcasts, and I would be able to reach a hell of a lot more people if you like and subscribe. So thank you to all of you who have already liked and subscribed. And if you haven't, please subscribe and leave us a 5-star review so we can reach more people.